On June 6, 1944, at Omaha Beach in northern France, this narrow 6-kilometer-wide beach, with its easily defensible terrain, resembled the gaping mouth of a tiger. The beach was strewn with steel anti-tank obstacles. Captain Miller of Company C, 2nd Ranger Battalion, along with his comrades, boarded a Higgins landing craft from Portsmouth. After a night of rough seas, they gradually approached the landing zone. The sparse sounds of gunfire and artillery slowly overpowered the noise of the rain and waves. Everyone's faces couldn't hide their tension at the moment the ramp dropped. The German bullets were denser than the raindrops. Many American soldiers were shot dead before they had a chance to react. The firepower of the MG-34 machine gun was incredibly powerful, causing severe casualties among the landing American troops. Miller ordered his men to disembark from the sides of the craft. After finally struggling ashore, they discovered that the beach had become a human slaughterhouse. The seawater was stained red with blood. The massive sound of gunfire momentarily deafened Miller. Amidst the ringing in his ears, he saw a soldier in a daze, trying to pick up his severed arm until a comrade's call brought him back to his senses. He ordered everyone not to stay on the beachhead and to rush towards the bunkers on the beach. After losing several comrades in quick succession, Miller staggered to the rally point. A small mound blocked the Germans' line of sight, but the planned tank support did not appear, and the anticipated breach had not been opened. They now had to rely on themselves. The explosive device was installed quickly. With a loud explosion, a breach was opened. Miller and his comrades took cover behind obstacles. Using a bayonet and chewing gum, he attached a small mirror to observe the enemy's machine gun positions. Private Jackson then took aim at the enemy and, without hesitation, took them out one by one. The situation was similar in other parts of the beachhead. Over 34,000 soldiers from the first wave of landing troops finally gained the upper hand as more and more Allied soldiers kept landing. The German troops became the ones awaiting slaughter. Grenades and flamethrowers were used in turn, with soldiers venting their suppressed anger. The beach landing was temporarily concluded. The beach was littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers. One of the backpacks had the name Ryan written on it. In Washington, at the United States Army General Staff Headquarters, dozens of staff members were busy writing condolence letters to the families of the deceased. A woman discovered that 3 of the fallen soldiers were from the same family, all named Ryan. 2 brothers had died in Normandy. The eldest had been killed a few weeks earlier in New Guinea, and the youngest brother, Ryan, was missing in action with the 101st Airborne Division in Normandy. Colonel War Department got the news and decided to invoke the Sullivan Act, which means not allowing all children from one family to be sacrificed on the battlefield. In the Iowa countryside, a military vehicle drove through golden fields and arrived at the Ryan family's doorstep. The mother walked out of the house, and upon seeing the officers and chaplains step out of the car, she already understood what it meant. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed on the porch, trembling uncontrollably. The officers and chaplain hurriedly went up to support the elderly woman. In his office, General Marshall and other generals agreed to invoke the Sullivan Act. However, the problem was that Ryan had been deployed with the 101st Airborne Division in Normandy. Whether he was still alive or where he might be was completely unknown. If a rescue team were to be sent, they would have to pass through German-controlled territory, and casualties would be inevitable. General Marshall pulls out Lincoln's famous Mrs. Bixby letter, reads it again, and decides to send a team to find Ryan, no matter what the outcome. On the 3rd day of the landing, the higher-ups decided to entrust Captain Miller with the task of rescuing Ryan. He was to select personnel from Company C and other companies to form a team and head to the rear for the mission. Miller chose his most trusted companions, Private Mellish, Caparzo, Sharpshooter Jackson, Private Reiben, and Medic Wade. He also selected Corporal Upham, who understood French and German. They packed their gear, took their ammunition and weapons, and the 8-man squad officially set out. As soon as they left the beach, they started discussing whether it was worth risking their lives to save Ryan. Wade said, "Don't you think about Ryan's poor mother?" But everyone in the squad was also someone's son. Miller's sense of duty was high. He said, "We are soldiers. It's our duty to follow orders without question. This is a call to duty. Nothing more needs to be considered." The sky began to rain heavily as they reached a French town where American and German troops were in close combat. Sergeant Hill, who was waiting to assist, thought Miller's team was there to provide support. Miller regretfully informed him that they were there to find Private Ryan. The once beautiful town had turned into ruins under the flames of war. A French couple sought help from the American soldiers, hoping they could take their child out of the combat zone. Caparzo, ignoring objections, stepped out of cover to take the child. As Miller took the child from him, gunfire rang out, and a bullet pierced Caparzo's chest. Knowing he wouldn't make it, he took out a letter and asked his comrades to deliver it to his family. Even then, he worried that the letter might get stained with his blood. Jackson spotted the German soldier hiding in the bell tower and killed him with a single shot. However, Caparzo succumbed to his injuries. Sergeant Hill rested against the ruins for a few minutes, accidentally knocking over a plank, which dislodged a loose brick wall, revealing 7 or 8 German soldiers. Both sides tensed up, quickly raising their guns and shouting at each other. Captain Hamel of the American forces fired the first shot, breaking the standoff. The German squad was quickly eliminated. Securing the town, Hamel, upon learning that Miller's team was searching for Ryan, brought them a young man named Ryan. Unfortunately, it was just someone with the same name. A wounded soldier from Company C of the 506th Regiment informed Miller that the Ryan they were looking for was in Company B and pointed out the location on a map. Finally having concrete information on Ryan's whereabouts, Miller decided to have everyone rest in the church for the night and head to Company B the next day to find Ryan. Caparzo's blood-stained letter was rewritten by Wade. Under the dim light, amidst the gentle sounds of snoring, the comrades slept like babies. Wade thought of his mother back home. Due to her night shifts, every time she came home, he would already be asleep, and there was little communication between mother and son. Now, separated by half the globe, he found himself on the battlefield, unsure if he would ever see her again. Thinking of this, Wade's eyes filled with tears. Early the next morning, Miller's squad arrived at the assembly area of Company B paratroopers. A commander, upon learning of their mission, informed Miller that he had no information on Ryan. However, there was a crashed plane nearby with 22 deceased soldiers whose identities had yet to be verified. He suggested Miller check if Ryan was among them. Jackson, Reiben, and Mellish searched through the military license plate for Ryan's name and, in a moment of levity, began playing poker with the military license plate. Passing paratroopers looked on with anger. Each military license plate represented a life and a family's concern, making such behavior highly inappropriate. Wade quickly gathered the military license plate, and Miller walked into the paratrooper ranks, loudly asking if anyone knew Ryan from Company B. A soldier who claimed to know Ryan came forward but was hard of hearing due to a concussion, so they had to communicate with pen and paper. Ryan had parachuted 20 miles off course. A colonel had gathered scattered soldiers to defend a strategically important bridge in the town of Landler. Miller's team set out once again for the town of Landler. After crossing the fields, they came across several American corpses. Not far ahead was an abandoned radar station guarded by a small group of Germans. Someone suggested bypassing it, but with the enemy numbers being small, Miller decided on a frontal assault. The squad split into 3 groups: left, center, and right. Upham, stationed at the rear, hid beside a cow carcass, using his sniper scope to observe. Once the battle ended, he gathered his gear and rejoined the group. Wade had been shot in the chest, and blood was gushing out. The team frantically attempted to save him. Wade knew the bullet had pierced his liver, and he would die in a few minutes. In his final moments, he kept calling for his mother until he passed away. Reiben captured a surviving German soldier, and Miller ordered the German to dig graves for Wade and the other fallen Americans. Beneath the radar station, Miller opened a map. He felt deeply regretful and remorseful for his impulsiveness, which led him to break down in tears. After handling the bodies, everyone agreed that the captured German should be executed. The German, knowing his fate, pleaded for his life. Expressing his fondness for American culture, Miller blindfolded the German and let him go. The team began to question this decision, arguing that they had lost 2 lives without even seeing Ryan's face. They wondered what the point of the mission was. Reiben even considered abandoning the mission. At this point, Miller revealed that he was a schoolteacher back home. He explained that saving Ryan was his ticket to an early return home. On the battlefield, every enemy he killed increased his sense of guilt. The mission to save Ryan felt like a way to redeem himself. After hearing this, Reiben decided to stay with the team and continue the mission with Miller. Not far from their previous location, they encountered a German armored car. With the help of friendly forces, they destroyed the enemy in under 2 minutes. Fortune finally smiled upon them, as among the Allied troops carrying an anti-tank rocket launcher was none other than Ryan. Back at the bridge in the town of Landler, Miller met Corporal Henderson. Henderson initially hoped Miller's team was there to reinforce them but was disheartened to learn their mission was to take Ryan back. Upon hearing that all 3 of his brothers had been killed, Ryan was overcome with grief but resolutely refused to abandon his comrades, insisting on staying to defend the bridge. Reiben told Ryan that 2 of their team members had died trying to find him, but Ryan still insisted on staying. He doesn't feel entitled to leave. Miller had to adapt and decided that the only way to convince Ryan might be to help defend the bridge. This might make Ryan change his mind. The remaining ammunition was limited. The best strategy was to use the terrain to ambush the enemy from both sides of the buildings. The enemy was likely to have tanks, which small arms couldn't handle. Miller instructed Sergeant Horvath to teach everyone how to make sticky bombs using socks filled with explosives and coated with axle grease to stick them onto the tanks. If they couldn't hold the bridge, their last resort was to blow it up to cut off the German advance. After a flurry of preparations, they took a short break, sitting on the steps and listening to pop songs on the radio. Miller and Ryan chatted. Ryan lamented that he could no longer remember his brothers' faces, realizing he would never see them again. Their childhood pranks seemed both recent and distant. The enemy finally appeared. Jackson, on lookout in the bell tower, signaled to Miller that the Germans had 2 Tiger tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and a platoon of about 50 infantry. They were outgunned and outnumbered. Facing a grim battle, the ambush tactics were initially effective, causing the Germans considerable trouble and momentarily disrupting their formation. However, the homemade sticky bombs were hard to control, often detonating prematurely and causing casualties among their own. The heavily armored Tiger tanks, with their 100mm thick armor, were among the most feared war machines of World War II. Although they managed to blow off the track of the leading Tiger and take out an armored car with incendiary grenades, the Germans still had superior numbers. The battle line began to retreat. Several American soldiers climbed onto the Tiger tank, trying to toss grenades into the driver's hatch. Meanwhile, a German 20mm cannon positioned in the right corner mowed down 6 American soldiers. In the tower, Jackson demonstrated his sharpshooting skills, taking out 1 enemy with each shot. But the second Tiger tank raised its main gun, and before Jackson could react, he and his spotter were killed. Upham, who had never been in combat, was supposed to be ferrying ammunition to Mellish and Henderson, but with bullets flying, the thunderous roar of tank engines, and the clatter of German voices, he was paralyzed with fear and unable to move upstairs to deliver the ammo. Mellish and Henderson were running low on ammunition and surrounded by Germans. Henderson was shot, and Mellish engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the attacking Germans, eventually being stabbed in the heart with a knife. As he descended, the German soldier who had killed Mellish saw the trembling Upham but spared him. Ryan and Miller used 60mm mortar shells as makeshift grenades, taking out several German soldiers. Horvath attempted to take out the second Tiger tank with an anti-tank rocket, but the shell harmlessly bounced off the tank's front armor, having no effect. As the Tiger tank continued to advance, Ryan and Miller had no choice but to retreat to the far side of the bridge. Horvath, while retreating, was shot in the right shoulder. Upham, having descended the stairs, hid in a dirt hole, too afraid to move. When he looked up, he saw the same German soldier they had spared at the radar station. When Miller attempted to retrieve the detonator to blow up the bridge, that German soldier shot him. The Tiger tank tried to cross the bridge, and Miller, acting on instinct, pulled out his pistol and fired randomly. Suddenly, an explosion erupted, causing the tank's main gun to lift. Overhead, a P-51 Mustang, an Allied aircraft, swooped in. Finally, ground and air reinforcements had arrived, instantly turning the tide of the battle with their overwhelming firepower. The German soldiers began to scatter, hidden in the dirt hole. Upham took advantage of the situation, raising his gun to command several German soldiers to surrender. He then unhesitatingly shot the German soldier they had previously spared, allowing the others to go free. In his final moments, Miller, using his last bit of strength, pulled Ryan close and whispered to him not to let everyone down. Then, the light faded from his eyes, and he passed away. The battlefield finally fell silent. Of the 8-man squad, only Upham and Reiben remained. General Marshall read the letter to Ryan's mother. As his solemn voice echoed, the scene shifted back to the American cemetery at Omaha Beach. Ryan, standing before Captain Miller's gravestone with tears in his eyes, repeatedly emphasized that he had lived his life honoring Miller's words and had tried to be a good man, not letting their sacrifice go to waste. With Ryan's military salute, the film Saving Private Ryan concluded perfectly. The movie's performance was exceptional, winning 5 Academy Awards that year. This film is undoubtedly one of the best war movies in contemporary cinema history. Its realistic filming techniques, using low saturation and graininess to create a documentary feel, revolutionized the genre. Combined with realistic sound effects, It changed how war films were made in the future. While war films often have a cool heroic vibe, this film completely altered my perspective. War is so brutal and merciless, but World War II against the Japanese and German fascists undeniably positioned America on the side of justice. 3 scenes in the film remain etched in my memory. First is the landing scene. As the door opened, bullets flew, and many soldiers had no time to react before being torn apart, such as the harshness of war. Second is when Ryan's mother saw the chaplain and officer, realizing what had happened, and collapsed, trembling on the porch. The emotional tension in this scene surpassed many exaggerated crying scenes by miles. Third is when Caparzo, knowing he was about to die, instructed his comrades to deliver his letter to his family, emphasizing not to stain it with his blood. This early hint at Caparzo's family-oriented nature was powerful. The film ends here. It's a highly rated classic. A review cannot replace the original film. If you enjoyed my review, please subscribe to my channel. I'm a movie lover. See you next time.